So, Super Rugby round 3 Saturday games. We have 5 games on 4 continents. Lots of action to look forward to. Let's get stuck into it. So, Crusaders against Stormers. It's an ominous looking one if you're a Stormers fan. So, the Stormers are just coming off a last minute loss against the Waratahs. Probably should have got a draw in that game. And they're heading to Christchurch to face a team who just piled a few points onto a decent looking Chiefs team. The Stormers have never won in Christchurch. Last time they were there, they got absolutely walloped. So it's not looking great. To make matters worse, young fly half Damien Willems is out. So Dylan Lades moves into fly half. So it's really a bit of a, with the problems they've had at hooker, other positions, having Lades have to step in. I know he did well against, I think it was the Blues last season at 10, but I mean, it's obviously not his preferred position. So yeah, not ideal. Kitsoff's on the bench, but I'm sure he'll come on pretty shortly into the second half. Sinatla's on the wing, which is always exciting. He's a really exciting guy, 7th background. But yeah, you have to think it's quite a mountain to climb for them going into Christchurch. The Crusaders will just be expecting another steamroller performance. If they don't win with a bonus point, I think fans will be asking questions about what happened. They're not without their own injuries. Matt Todd broke his thumb, so Billy Harmon's come in. He's still a pretty young guy coming through, so I guess if nothing else, good chance to give another guy some experience at the top level. The bookies are picking the Crusaders to win pretty handedly, like by at least a couple of tries. For the Stormers, I think your expectations are just don't get smashed. I mean, I know you go into every game to win, but realistically, if they get a bonus point, I think that's pretty much like a win on tour. That'd be a massive improvement from last year. If they can get a win, I'll be dancing. Come on, man. Never beaten the Crusaders down there. I think that'd be a heck of an accomplishment. But it's really not looking on the cards anyway, from what we see on paper. And like I say, for the Crusaders, anything less than a win, and probably with a 4, I'm not a 4-try bonus point anymore, but a 3-try advantage bonus point, whatever the heck they call it. Yeah, if they don't get that, if they don't take maximum points, they're going to be disappointed, put it that way. In the next game, the Sunwolves and the Rebels. So Sunwolves with the 1 loss, the Rebels with the 1 big win last week against the Reds. It's definitely going to be a good look for us to see where the Sunwolves are at, because the first game of the season they probably did better than people expected, but one game is not enough to show how they're going to be for the whole season. So we're going to they're going to have to push a Rebels team who really performed pretty well last week. So a few changes in their team. They've gotten rid of Robinson from fly half, which I think is a good idea. They've put in Hayden Parker. I think it's a much better choice. Robinson, I think, is more comfortable at 15, and Parker's no slouch in 10 jersey. A back row of Eddie Quirk, Michael Leach, and Lapis Labuskakni. Like heck, I'd take that at the Blues, man. Come on, that's a pretty sweet looking back row. But they've had to move Willie Britson from number 8 into the 2nd row, I guess because Grant Hadding is not fit. He did come off early in the game last week. So yeah, possibly some trouble at lock for them. The Rebels have got lots of locks, so that'll be one area where they'll be looking to dominate. For them, it's really, you have to play 15 men for a whole game. Can you handle that? I'm sure they can. They've got a really strong looking team, and they've not changed the starting 15. So Dave Vessels, the Rebels coach, is definitely not taking this game lightly at all. He would have seen what happened in Tokyo last week against the Brumbies and thought, right, we need to maintain our performance levels, because the Sunwolves seemingly at a quality that if you let up, they're going to punish you. So He's gone for an interesting split on the bench. He does have a couple of changes on the bench. He switched a couple guys around, but he's gone for a 6 forward and 2 back split. So one would imagine he's looking for his forwards to really front up and dominate the Sunwolves in that area. So I think we can expect to see a few pick and goes from the Rebels on Saturday. Sunwolves, of course, will be pushing for a win to get a step better than they did last week. Again, you'd have to say if they can get a losing bonus point, people aren't going to be too disappointed, but you're not in Super Rugby to get bonus points. So at home, you'd be going for the win. The Rebels, I think, if they don't push for at least a win, they'll be disappointed and possibly targeting the bonus point. But with the Brumbies not having got anywhere near a winning try bonus point, I don't think that will be a minimum requirement. But how they go against the Sunwolves will be how we judge them against the Brumbies. So interesting one to watch. The next game sees the Sharks play the Waratahs over in Durban. So you can basically, I've described this one as rust versus travel. So the Sharks, they had 1 week of game against the Lions, then they had a bye, and then they're back into action on week 3. So it's not the ideal start. You don't get any continuity, you don't get to get into any rhythm. If nothing else, it's a good chance for them to practice scrummaging, because they were seemingly in a bit of trouble in that area against the Lions, who admittedly do have a pretty strong scrum. For the Waratahs, it's travelling over from Australia to South Africa, so that it's always a factor on players. The degree on how much it affects, it's probably an individual thing. Some players will get up the next morning and feel like $100, but then other players will just feel knackered for a few days and take quite a while to recover. May not even be 100% by match day. So yeah, it's a hard one. In terms of squads, Mapimpi's not playing, which is pretty disappointing. I'm always liking watching that guy. Basically, he's an excitement machine. So he's getting, one paper described it as a rest, but you just had a rest in the bye, so I'm not sure what he's resting, but whatever. Kuan Bosch is once again on the bench, so Rob Dupree gets the favoured 10 jersey spot. I don't think that's surprising. I think that'll be the way it goes most of the season. I think for the Sharks, they'll definitely be targeting the line out, because for the Waratahs, Ned Hannigan's had to go into the second row. I think he's probably better at 6, but I think he's a lock by trade. But yeah, the way they performed against the Lions, this is the Sharks I'm talking about. It's an area where they can look to get some advantage. I think also Esterhazen is probably going to run at Kurtley Beale, because he's got at least 10 centimetres on him and at least 10 kilos on him. So Kurtley, whilst good going forward, will be a target for them defensively. And also I think Rob Dupree is probably a fair bit bigger than Bernard Foley. So size is on the Sharks side. It'll be interesting to see how the Waratahs kind of counter that, just pure bulk. They'll have to do something with skill, one would imagine. Sharks are expected to win, but not so heavily. The bookies are saying, I think, 6 points. So, yeah, traditionally with these two sides, I've just looked at the records. The home side has won each game for like the last 5 or 6 seasons. So one would expect the Sharks to win this one. Waratahs, it's not a must win, but it would be nice to pick up some points. A win would be huge. If the Sharks lose their first one at home, I mean, they were one of the teams tipped to kind of push the Lions this season. If they lose this one at home to an Aussie team who was pretty poor last year, then I think those confidence levels kind of drop and they be more looking at hunting a wild card. But still, it's early in the season. We'll see how things look. In the next game, which I'm dubbing the Clash of the Titans, we've got the Bulls and the Lions. Clash of the Titans, because in my power rankings, I've got the Lions at 1 and the Bulls at 3. Both teams undefeated, which I think is a unique matchup on this board for Saturday. So, I know there's only one game to the Bulls, but still, Clash of the Titans is what I'm going with. Mitchell has gone with if it ain't broke, don't fix it motto with his Bulls, because he's not changed anything, which means still no Waratahs, which is kind of disappointing, because I'm just looking to see him get going this season, but we haven't seen him at all. Still not 100%. They said they're not going to rush him back, so fair enough, I guess. Better to give him a bit of extra time and make sure he comes back properly, rather than rush him and risk him getting injured once again. Again, I would look for their two locks, Diaka and Snyman, to try and get a bit of dominance, because the Sharks proved when they played the Lions that might be one area where the Lions are vulnerable. And speaking of Lions locks, Franco Mostert is playing in the 7 jersey this week. So Quaka Smith's away for compassionate reasons. So Mostert moves to 7, Brink goes to 6, and Marvin Orie comes into the side. So yeah, interesting. I wouldn't have picked it. It's an interesting choice, but we've got to have a bit of faith in old Swiss to see if he can get something different out of the Lions for this one. Ferreira's still there in the locks, because Orie had a bit of a hard time in the game against the Sharks, especially at line-out. But Ferreira's capable, and just because Mostert's playing in the loosies doesn't mean he can't jump at line-out time. So yeah, it's going to be a good competition in that area. Yeah, the Lions are pretty heavy favourites for this one. Hopefully we'll get a good crowd, because I mean it's the ultimate derby match. I mean the Lions are only driving up the road like about an hour, so yeah, I'm hoping for a good lot of fans travelling up to Pretoria from Johannesburg, and yeah, just hopefully a good game. If the Bulls can win this one, then maybe people start talking about them in the playoff conversation. I don't know if they'd be talking about them as contenders yet, but there'd be a lot more talk about them, because one win over the Hurricanes doesn't really enough to set everyone going too much, but it's got hopes up anyway. For the Lions, definitely expected to win. If they go in and win it, it's not going to raise an eyebrow. It's just totally expected. If they can get a big win, then obviously good for their season. If they lose, then other teams like the Sharks, Stormers, maybe not this week, but we'll be looking to close that gap. So we will see. And in the final game of the round, so the Jaguares play the Hurricanes over in Argentina. First home game for the Jaguares this season, coming off of two unsuccessful tour games of South Africa. So it's another kind of Blues and Chiefs one, in that it's a battle of like if that was Clash of the Titans, this is kind of, I mean, a battle of the losers. Just because they've only had one loss doesn't mean they're losers for sure. They won it more recently than a lot of other teams. So not saying they're losers, but you know what I mean. So both teams looking to bounce back from poor results recently. The Jaguares especially, just because they've had 2. I think if you get more than, if you start going on a losing run 3-4 games, the season's not that long, it starts to get to a point where it's too hard to come back. So if the Bulls can do it, there's no reason the Jaguares can't do it. They need to win at home. They need to silence some of their critics for sure. New Zealand teams can be beaten for sure, and that would really, I don't know, throw a bit of a spanner in the Super Rugby works if the Hurricanes can get knocked over again. They got no Lavanini, which is one man that I would have liked to see play, just because the Hurricanes perhaps at lock are lacking a bit of depth. So he would have been that just kind of imposing figure to put a bit of extra pressure on, but he is out, so that's a pity. For the Hurricanes though, Michael Fatialofa is back. He's on the bench, so he's obviously not quite 100%, but they're easing him back into it. The Barrett boys are back, so the big guns are out for the Hurricanes. Bodie's at 10, Geordie is at 15, Husin is out. So yeah, I think it's an overall stronger looking Hurricanes team than last week. Ehire West pays the price for last week's performance and is dropped from the matchday squad entirely. So Jackson Garden-Bishop is on the bench as a reserve 10. Yeah, the Hurricanes need a win definitely, because the New Zealand conference is pretty strong. It still remains to be seen this year, but if last year is anything to go by, the New Zealand teams didn't drop a whole lot of games against non-New Zealand opposition. So if they start doing that, again, it gets hard to catch up if other teams aren't doing that. It means you've got to win more of your derby games back in New Zealand. Jaguares need to get their season underway soon, otherwise it's not going to get underway at all. Bookies are picking the Hurricanes, again, fairly comfortably, at least 10 points, they are saying. I don't know. Jaguares at home, probably different from away. Travel factor is not really an issue. They've both just travelled over from South Africa, so there shouldn't be much difference. Obviously, the Jaguares played their preseason in South Africa, so it's just kind of one shift in time zones, just South Africa to South America, whereas the Hurricanes have kind of hopped from New Zealand 1 week, South Africa next week, and Argentina next week. So the travel might slightly favour the Jaguares, but either way, both newly in Argentina. So yeah, lots of games. I think this week I'm probably going to go with, game of the week's probably this one. With two unbeaten teams. The Bulls I haven't seen yet. The Lions probably the top team in the competition so far after only having played two. I think in terms of me watching, I probably will miss these two. Just because they're pretty much on one after the other. There's a bit of a gap between the last two here, but yeah, it's hard to watch everything and sleep at the same time. So yeah, definitely going to watch as much as I can. I haven't seen the Bulls yet, like I say, so I have to watch that one. It's a must, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But still, things you got to do, but yeah, we'll see how the results go. Let me know who you think's going to win. Some comments have said Lions definitely going to beat the Bulls. Other people saying don't be so sure. You never know what's going to happen. Rebels, Sunwolves, definitely going to be a curious one as well to see how they go. Alright guys, let me know what you think, and yes, I will talk to you guys again for the Friday games review, probably tomorrow. Alright guys, see you later.